and welcome to my channel, Bow and Arrow Tarot. Today we're going to get right into the weekly reading for the sign of Libra. Alright, Libras, you're up. And we're going to go ahead and get right into pulling out your romance angel messages. Then we'll get into your animal spirits and your traditional spread. Alright, Libra, this is going to be for January 12th to the 18th. Thank you to my regulars who show me so much support. I appreciate you all. Thank you to my new watchers for stopping by. I appreciate that also. All right, let's get right into it, Libra. Release your ex. New love. And give your relationship a chance. All right, so very good. We won't know really what that means specifically for you or your week until we pull out your cards. So let's get right into your animal spirits, Libra. Now, animal spirits can be individuals, characteristics, personality types, can represent stages of your life that you may be coming into, energies that are becoming available to you. Whatever the case may be, just take it as it resonates for you. If it applies, great. If it doesn't apply, let it fly. All right, we have the bee. Lovely air energy always comes out in the first position. I've done hundreds of readings now for this channel. Literally, I think I have about between 800 and 900 readings I've uploaded, and the bee basically has come out almost every single time when it does show up in the first position. We have the buffalo, earth energy, and we have the elk, more earth energy. Interesting. All right, so let's get right into it. The bee. Like I said, he's one of my regular players for my readings, right? I love bumblebee energy or bee energy. This is air, of course, and the bee is highly creative, is hardworking, loves to work as part of a group, and loves to really uplift everyone, is very fair, you know. This is the animal spirit that embodies the great Democrat in a lot of ways, you know, the idea of democracy, the idea that everyone has a voice and a place. It makes perfect sense, of course, because bees live in colonies where every single bee has its place in that colony, and they all are valuable to the welfare of the entire group, right? Entire colony. So bee energy individuals bring a huge amount of enthusiasm. They're extremely lovely to be around. Everybody loves being around them. They're very sociable. They're very creative. They're extremely hardworking. They're just a delight. And certainly if you have a friend who is resonating with this energy, this is a really nice person to have in your life. Now, the buffalo is really interesting. The buffalo sort of connects the heavenly with the earth, right? The buffalo is earth energy, is associated with high level of spiritual awareness. The buffalo is one of these animals that takes sort of any sort of, difficulty or troubled terrain that it has to traverse, or any obstacle that it needs to face, right? It takes all of those things as opportunities to transcend itself. And this is a very special animal spirit in that way, right? The buffalo isn't afraid of sickness or death or, trauma or, trials and tribulations. Everything that the buffalo goes through, everything in its path, he just looks it head on, and seeks, within that experience, seeks a way to transcend this experience and to get closer to the heavens, right? Closer to the spirit. Really, really strong energy, very mystically and sort of inclined. Beautiful energy. Elk energy is more earth energy, and the elk is the card for the father. Right. Just as the deer is the card for the mother, the elk is the card for the father. You recognize, he displays wisdom, strength, understanding, survivalism, right? This is the person who will do anything for his children. Nothing can get in between the elk and his offspring or his children, his family. Sometimes elk individuals can be a little bit arrogant. You know, they can be a little bit too much, a little bit overbearing. But it is the love of the Father that really sort of is embodied with elk energy, you know, the guidance, the leadership, the wisdom, the protection. And so, of course, since he is at the head of the family, he can sometimes go a little bit overboard and be a little bit too severe or too strict. Nevertheless, that's when the energy has become out of balance. In balance, the elk is a very strong, supportive and nurturing and protective energy. All right, Libra, let's get right into your spreads. I'm going to pull out 4 3-card spreads for you. Just to see what your week may or may not be like. Now, these forecasts or outlooks are intended to be separate from each other. They're not necessarily going to be for the same Libra. So you may or may not only resonate with one of these spreads or even just a portion of them, right? So in that case, just take what applies to you. And as I say, if it doesn't apply, just let it go. It's not for you, okay? There's plenty of other channels and readers to check out there. So if my reading doesn't work for you, that's fine. Here we have Knight of Swords coming straight out. Knight of Wands and Star. So Knight of Swords is all about regret, right? Having sleepless nights, thinking a lot about a past event, wondering where it possibly went wrong. Having a lot of anxiety, right? This can oftentimes be a lot of misery that we really put on ourselves. This is definitely a path that you're walking on your own. You're feeling alone in it. All the 9 cards have an essence of the hermit in them. And so there are always images of figures that are alone going through that energy. And right now you do feel quite alone. You feel alone with sort of your thoughts. And they're kind of plaguing you, right? Excuse me. But nevertheless, come into this week with a Knight of Wands. And I think someone is coming in for you this week who is, you know, Knight of Wands is very idealistic in a lot of ways. He's very supportive. You know, he believes in you. This is the type of individual who has a lot of fire and a lot of passion. And they're coming into you. They're coming in squarely fixed on you, looking at you, you know, keeping their eyes on you. I think this may be someone who can be a friend. It could even be a new connection. It could be a new love connection. But it's almost as if you guys meet under different circumstances. It could very well be that whatever it is you're going through here, this individual is able to sort of support you and help you through it. And it isn't until later that you realize there is a romantic connection, right? But in some way, this Knight of Wands is coming in to really help you through this situation. You round your week off with Star energy, which is a feeling very much of sort of, you know, working on your wish, right? Your true life's wish. And Star, interesting, it could very well be that this Knight of Wands coming into you really opens your eyes up to a particular goal that you've had in your life. Maybe even a goal for new love, right? A goal to have a deep love connection with someone. To have the kind of love connection that sort of works on multiple levels, right? And you begin, I think by the end of the week, you begin to see that perhaps this meeting with this Knight of Wands could indeed be the one thing that you have been wishing for quite some time. Judgment, 7 of Swords, and the Strength card, number 8 in Major Arcana. So Judgment is all about forgiveness, right? Realizing that a particular situation you may have been hypercritical, you may have been overly sort of judgmental, right? Judgment is a time in our lives when we sort of face up to our own guilt. We face up to our own responsibilities, our own decisions. We begin to see and understand that every event, every scenario that we're involved in, there's more than one perspective, right? And there's more than your own sort of narrow perspective. There's always somebody else's perspective. And sort of being overly critical or overly judgmental about what other people have done really reflects that you may be as well overcritical with yourself and lacking forgiveness for yourself. And so you come into this week with this energy and you're met with a 7 of Swords. It's quite interesting. Could feel very much, Judgment can sometimes indicate a reconciliation with someone, right? Now that you're beginning to sort of have a bit more empathy about perhaps the way they perceived the situation, or they perceived the event, or how it impacted them as opposed to just the way it impacted you. And so your empathy grows, your compassion grows, and a lot of times your desire for reconciliation can increase, right? But you're met with a Seven of Swords, which is interesting this week. Seven of Swords is treachery and futility. Seems to indicate to me that someone that you have forgiven, it's almost as if, like, as soon as you have gotten to this point of reconciliation and perhaps forgiving them a little bit, forgiving yourself and being willing to move forward, it's like you come right into this week, and it's like you're met with all of their shit all over again. I think this is the same person, right? But Seven of Swords, you find out that they are even more treacherous than you believed. I think this week you find out that, in fact, they've been working behind the scenes in a lot of ways to sort of take the wind out of your sails, take your dreams from you, take your energy from you. And here, while you were sort of building up all of this sort of empathy and compassion and willingness to discuss things, you kind of find out later, like some part of the week, this week, you find out that they haven't been doing that. In fact, they've been sort of on this vengeful kind of spiteful kind of mission to sort of mess with you, mess with your life, And so, sorry about the background noise. Someone outside my house is laughing or something. And so it's quite interesting. It almost feels like, wow, just when I thought I knew you, or just when I thought I was ready to forgive you, I realized that you are still up to you're up to even worse things than I thought before, You're up to even more sort of shisty behavior, And I think you wake up to that and you round your week off with strength, energy, in the sense that you realize it's all about boundaries with you, right? It's all about maintaining boundaries with people, enforcing those boundaries, and not really letting people to overstep those bounds with you. You're learning where you're the strongest. I think this week, this whole affair, this whole sort of event, I want to say, right, in your life has really taught you exactly like how strong you are in certain areas. And it's really opened your eyes to a lot of things about yourself that you didn't really understand until now. More than anything, it's really sort of infused you with a feeling of strength and confidence, and really understanding that this is all about boundaries. And at the end of the day, this whole scenario would not have necessarily happened had you enforced your boundaries. And I think that that's the lesson you're learning out of all of this. Four of Wands, Five of Swords, and the Lovers. Some of you are coming in this week with a new connection, right? It's a new connection in love. Four is the number for stability. But Four of Wands is Venus and Aries. And so we're talking about a new sort of beautiful love connection, right? It is the 11-11 card. This is a mutual love connection, right? Where you start off very much stable. There's mutual love, respect for each other, and focus. But you come up with a Five of Swords this week. It's quite interesting because somewhere along the line there's a power struggle, right? And it's almost as if, I'm feeling for some of you Libras, it's like here the Four of Wands is an energy with someone you believe to be a soulmate connection. You believed it to be a soulmate connection. However, coming to Five of Swords, you begin to realize that it isn't. That, in fact, there's a lot of power struggle here. There's a lot of constant arguing and bickering. There isn't that mutual sort of, it almost feels like there isn't that mutual sort of respect and intention and honesty here. And so under finding this out about a particular connection, or realizing this about a particular connection, because yet again, this week you're met with all of this power struggle. So this new connection that you have this week kind of runs into this kind of power dynamic, right? This kind of power struggle of arguing, somebody always wanting to be right. Almost feels to me very much like you've met somebody who you have a real bond with, who you really love. You feel like this is a real soulmate connection, but now that you're with them, you're realizing there's a lot of arguing there. There's a lot of competitiveness there. I think you're maybe seeing a side to them that you have not seen before. And nevertheless, though, you round the week off with Lover's energy, and it feels very much like a decision that you're making realizing that, with the Lovers card, we see that there's work involved, right? If you want to have a harmonious connection, it doesn't just spring up out of nowhere. Here we have the connection, the passion that brings us together with a strong, stable union. But with the Lovers, we talk about the actual work that is involved, right? The actual sort of understanding that, you have something your partner needs and your partner has something that you need, and this will take time and effort to work through. And are you prepared to do that? Lovers, of course, is associated with Gemini energy. But this is a very strong love connection. I think that this week is really being tested with some arguing and fighting. And again, like I said, I think one of you, either you or your partner, is seeing a side of the other one that is kind of like, wow, I didn't know you was like that, and it's really sort of testing the relationship this week in a lot of ways. By the end of the week, you realize that this relationship isn't going to be all sort of candy floss and light, like it was, like you thought maybe in the beginning when you first connected with this person. This relationship is going to take a lot of work. And again, I always say to my watchers, when we're talking about love connections, you always have to decide, do you want to be somebody's therapist or do you want to be their lover? If you want to spend the next 10 years of your life worrying about somebody else's sort of psychological and emotional stability and being their therapist, that's that's fine. But you can't be both. Right? You cannot be somebody's therapist and somebody's lover. You just can't, And most of the time, if you choose to put yourself in the role of being somebody's therapist, in the sense that you're making all of these sort of amends for like everything that they've gone through. Oh, they had a rough childhood. Oh, they don't know how to love and all of that. That's great. But once they become healthier, once they get through all of that toxicity, they're not going to suddenly become your lover. They're going to move away from you and move towards someone that they actually feel a love connection with. So it's a bit of a delusion to think that you can be a therapist to someone and that they will somehow be so grateful to you that they'll then fall in love with you. That is a delusion that a lot of people fall into, and it never works. So just be very careful here. If you're dealing with somebody who's very toxic, this relationship is very toxic with this 5 of Swords, you're going to really have to make a decision on what it is you truly desire, right? Last spread, more toxicity, 8 of Swords, 5 of Cups, and the Moon. So there's your test. 8 of Swords is the gaslighter, the person who plays the victim all the time, the person who alienates themselves by their very restricted way of thinking. They blame everyone else in the world for their problems. This is a very, very toxic energy. You come into the week with this energy, right? It could very well be that you are feeling a little bit of this, right? You may not be completely sort of feeling the 8 of Swords in the sense that you're, that this is who you are. But it could be that you're feeling a little bit like, things are out of your control, that you don't have the control to make the changes you want to your life. You could be feeling a little bit like, unfairly treated. You could be feeling a little bit like the victim this week coming into, because you're certainly coming into the week with 8 of Swords energy. Right? And so it is what it is. Sometimes people don't like the readings when it says something sort of somewhat negative, or says that maybe you, right, Libra, are resonating with some toxic energy. We all resonate with toxic energy, And not all the readings can be, about how horrible your ex is or how horrible somebody else in your life is. Sometimes the readings just say what they say. And right now, some of you Libras are coming into this week with a little bit of this toxic 8 of Swords energy. Now, the trick is to recognize it and to perhaps come out of it. You're met with a 5 of Cups, which is a sense of regret. This week, something happens that really reminds you of a past relationship. It could be that you make the connection between some of this toxicity that you're carrying and a past relationship that really, really hurt you, right? Nevertheless, this is a real testing phase this week. You round the week off with Moon energy. I'm going to say this last spread, Libra, for some of you, by the end of the week, you're very unsure of your feelings. You're very unsure of how to move forward. I think that perhaps you started the week off thinking very much that all of what you're going through right now is the other person's fault, right? Somebody else's fault, not your fault. Yet you're met with something this week that really sort of gets you to realize in a lot of ways, 5 of Cups is about really regretting the pain of a past broken relationship. Sometimes it can also be a little bit of guilt for how things went down. Did you, you know, what part did you play in this relationship breaking up, you know? It's not always the other person, you know, at the end of the day, you know. And I already know I'm going to get people sort of like coming to this, you know, and hating it because, you know, they can't face up to it. But it is, you know, you have to, if you want to get better, you have to face up to it. And I think this week you kind of, some of you out there are going to be realizing this. It's as if you're almost taking a step back. Something happens this week that almost takes you back to a previous relationship where things just didn't go right for you. And I think you get real confused by it because up until now, I think you've been blaming, for some of you, you may be feeling very much like this was all somebody else's fault. It was their fault that I had to behave the way I did. It's their fault that now I'm all fucked up. But now this week with this event, 5 of Cups coming in, there's a sense of regret there and there's a sense of guilt there. And like, hang on a second, maybe this all really started with me in the first place. And you find yourself by the end of the week with moon energy really feeling unsure of how to move forward because there's a lot of confusion there. Not all of the information is clear. Not all the answers are there. And it feels like you're being tested in a lot of ways. This could be a case of buffalo energy in a sense that something quite difficult is coming in for you this week. Maybe a conversation, an event, maybe just meeting somebody you haven't seen in quite a long time. And it really stirs all of this up, you know. And it is an opportunity for you to be sort of courageous and get through it and learn the lesson that you need to learn here with this moon energy. But it will take a lot of courage. And everything is not going to be completely clear. This is very much about you figuring out your own feelings and figuring out why you have such a restricted sort of stance on you know, your responsibilities and other people's responsibilities. This is a real sort of, I want to say it can be the precursor to a real healing period, but this is quite tough. This is a very tough period, Libra. And I do say that with all sincerity. This is going to be, for some of you, a very difficult week of sort of facing up to yourself. If you can do it, great. Not everybody can do it, you know. But if you can do it, you'll come out the stronger for it. You know, you'll transcend this and you'll learn a very big lesson. This is definitely buffalo energy. And definitely could be about releasing your ex as well. But in any case, I'm going to leave it right there, Libra. This is your reading, January 12th to the 18th. I hope it resonated for you. I hope it gave you some insight. You can check out your other readings that are also linked in the description. But for right now, Libra, all I'm going to say is have a wonderful week, and I shall see you next week for your weekly. Bye-bye now.